Hi. Today, we're gonna be taste testing matcha. I've always been a fan of matcha, but I feel like it was in the beginning of quarantine when I really started to actually learn how to make matcha at home. Since cafes are closed, it kind of became the perfect time to start experimenting with different drinks, and I kind of landed on matcha as something that I consistently drink every day. As you may know, I have a really big sensitivity to caffeine and coffee. Matcha became a great alternative drink that didn't make me extremely uncomfortable like coffee often did. So yeah, I got really into making matcha, and over the last few weeks I've accumulated different kinds of matcha. I've been trying to experiment with different kinds of culinary because it's a lot cheaper, and different kinds of ceremonial matcha, which is still my preferred way to drink it. So yeah, I thought, since I have all this matcha, why not make a matcha taste test video? I also want to say I am by no means a matcha expert, if you couldn't already tell. I do not make it in probably the most official way, but this is a drink I enjoy making, and I thought I would just sort of show you the different kinds of matcha I have and we can taste it all together. So without further ado, let's get into it. And before I go any further into the video, my name is Jess. If you've never seen me before, please subscribe if you want to. I make amateur cooking videos, I do random food tests, so if you're into all of this, go for it. So just to give a brief overview of all the matcha that we have, I have 2 culinary matchas and 2 ceremonial matchas. If you've never really encountered matcha before, just a really quick overview of kind of what that means. Culinary matcha is often the matcha that you use for baking, smoothies. It's a more bitter kind of matcha, oftentimes a lot cheaper than ceremonial. It's kind of made with leaves that aren't quite as new or as, I guess, high quality as ceremonial matcha, so it's more bitter tasting and cheaper. Where ceremonial matcha is often the matcha that is more officially used for like drinking tea. It has a more subtle flavor, it's not quite as bitter, and it's also really like a lot more expensive. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are kind of looking to buy matcha and you're not quite sure which one you're looking for. So for the first culinary matcha, I have this jade leaf matcha. It's 100% pure ground green tea powder. You might have seen this on Amazon. I think it's like one of the most reviewed matchas out there. My mom and I saw it was on sale, so we just picked up a bag like a few months ago. So this is gonna be the first culinary matcha. The second culinary matcha I have is something called sencha organic matcha. This is also 100% Japanese green tea powder. We got a really big bag from Costco. I think my dad and my mom just saw that you can get matcha from Costco, you know, as you buy things in bulk, things are cheaper. But yeah, this is a super hefty bag. This is like 12 ounces of matcha, which will last you for a really long time. So yeah, those are the 2 culinary matchas. Now for the ceremonial matchas. The first ceremonial matcha I have is from the Ippudo tea company. It's called the Sayaka no Mukashi matcha. It's got some really pretty packaging. I like how it's in this sort of metal container, and it has some really nice like gold design going on the outside. But yeah, I've heard really good things about Ippudo, and they have always had consistently great matcha. So yep, this is the first ceremonial matcha we'll be trying. For the second ceremonial matcha, we have something called Matcha Bar's Reserve Blend. I think it's slightly different from ceremonial grade in that they kind of advertise it as like a step higher than ceremonial. It's supposed to be even higher quality, maybe even newer leaves, but yeah, I guess we'll see how this one turns out. It also comes in this really pretty metal container, again with kind of like the nice detailing on the outside. Kind of noticing that ceremonial matcha often comes in these like really small tins. They don't come in like those huge like 12-ounce packs like culinary matcha can often come in. So yeah, just kind of giving you a look at all the different matchas we have, the different packaging, yeah, and those little details you get when you get these different kinds. Also, all the links to all of the matcha will be down in the description, where you'll be able to see the prices, the ounces, just more information in general about the matcha itself. Also want to say, none of this is sponsored by any matcha company. This is all just the matcha that we sort of happen to have in-house. All of the matcha I got after doing some research on what ceremonial and culinary matchas to buy, so yeah. Just wanted to put that out there. All right, let's get into making the actual matcha. Okay, so first off, we're gonna be making the first culinary matcha, which is this jade leaf. I'm just gonna be scooping 1/2 teaspoon, which is kind of like what they recommend a serving size to be. I'll oftentimes go closer to 1 teaspoon, but for the purposes of this video, why not just stick to half? Okay, I'm gonna be running the matcha through this sifter. Usually I don't use a sifter at all. I just was watching matcha videos to research this and saw that someone was getting completely roasted for not using a sifter. So I am just going to save myself the pain and use a sifter, which seems to be the proper thing to do. It's actually working pretty well. This is just a general sifter that I found in the kitchen. Did not purchase a specific tea strainer, but this seems to be working fine. I've heard that this helps to kind of sift through the clumps of the matcha because there's nothing worse than clumpy matcha. Okay, I'm getting this all over the place, which is great. Okay, cool. It's now finely sifted, as you can see. The next thing I did was just pour a little bit of hot water to mix the matcha in with. And then you're gonna take your little matcha whisk thing. I feel like I should know the more official name for this. I'll put that somewhere in the video, but yeah, essentially you're just going to whisk this around. And make sure that you're getting out all the clumps before you taste the matcha. And then something I like to do at the very end is just kind of look at the bottom of the glass and just see if there are any clumps that are still sticking to the bottom. And if there are, you just whisk for a few more seconds. But yeah, this is looking pretty good. And now I just went ahead and added a little bit more of hot water to kind of make it like a real matcha tea drink. Usually I'll add a little bit of milk to this, but for the taste testing purposes, I feel like just drinking it with hot water makes the most sense. Also, I know a lot of people use this matcha scooper to kind of scoop out the matcha, but I usually prefer to just use sort of like 1/2 teaspoon, just teaspoon sort of measurements, but this is also a really useful tool to kind of scoop out your matcha and place it in sort of your bowl or cup. Next up, I'll be doing the sencha culinary matcha, and we'll be doing the same thing. This one was relatively fast to whisk. Not too many clumps. Added a little more hot water and we're good to go. Next up, we have our Ipuro Ceremonial. So you can see it kind of comes in this little bag inside. Honestly, using a sifter actually makes it super easy to whisk around, so I might actually start using that. And here it is with some added water. There are a lot of clumps. Sifting will take a lot of time if there's a lot of clumps. And here is the finished product of all 4 matchas. As you can see, the culinary matchas look a lot yellower than the ceremonial ones. You can see that the green color is really pronounced in the ceremonial matchas. It's kind of crazy to see the difference when they're all next to each other. Okay, cool. Let's get into the actual taste test part. So first up, I have the first culinary matcha, which is the jade leaf. As you can see here, it just looks sort of like this yellowish green color. What I will say is that I think it does look greener than the other culinary matcha, the sencha over here. The jade leaf over here definitely looks a lot darker, and the other one looks more yellow, so that's kind of like a key that I think the color is the first thing that you can spot, where if it is greener, I would say that it's supposed to be better. Yeah, so this is really bitter, which is to be expected with culinary matcha. It's definitely very strong. It kind of has like that grassy flavor. There's not really like much sweetness or any kind of like subtle flavor about it. And next up we have the next culinary matcha, which was the sencha. So right off the bat, this does look a little bit yellower than the jade leaf, which kind of clues you in on that it might not be as good technically, I guess. Yes, it's definitely bitter. Both of these culinary matchas are definitely pretty bitter. I almost feel like this one sort of tastes kind of seaweedy to me. That might be kind of coming out of left field. I'm not sure if that's actually accurate, but I think it's kind of interesting. Definitely still has that grassy flavor that I feel like a lot of culinary matchas have. Do you want to try? 2 culinaries, Dina.
That one's sour. This one's less sour. Hope that helps.
Okay. Basically, we've concluded that there's something a little bit more off about the sencha one. I do want to say that generally they taste very similar. They both kind of have that grassy, bitter flavor that culinary matcha often has. But I am going to declare Jade Leaf Matcha the culinary winner because it tastes a little bit smoother. It's a bit more mild than the sencha. I don't know. To me, the sencha one has a weird kind of lingering taste to it. It's a little bit stronger. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with the Jade Leaf.
For that reason,
yes. Now, onto the ceremonial matchas. I'm going to be starting with the Ippudo tea. So this one here. So I feel like right off the bat, you can totally tell this one has a bit more of a subtle and like complex flavor profile. Like with the Ippudo one, you could definitely tell that there are still hints of that grassiness, that kind of classic matcha flavor. But I feel like you can taste like a little bit of like nuttiness. Like I feel like there's other flavors going on rather than it just being bitter and like grassy. It's definitely lighter than the other culinary matchas. And you can tell that it's also like a much deeper green color. The greener it is, you can expect it to be higher quality. Ceremonial matchas tend to be a lot deep green. Yeah, definitely pretty similar, I'd say, to the culinary, but just more subtle, a lot smoother. You could definitely just drink this straight up as tea. And now for the very last matcha, we have the second ceremonial, which is the Reserve Blend by Matcha Bar. You can see here that it's still that deep, nice green color. So this one is definitely the least bitter of all of them, and I feel like for this one you can taste the least amount of grassiness. What I will say is that it has the most subtle flavor. Like this does not have that kind of like really deep, powerful like matcha flavor that you might be expecting. But it's definitely the most pleasant. Like this is definitely the smoothest. You could drink this really easily. Yeah, I feel like this one by far is the most subtle of the flavors, but personally I feel like I like this one the best just because I don't really prefer a really bitter or overpowering matcha. I don't like it when it's like too grassy. So when it comes down to it, I feel like the Reserve Blend wins the ceremonial round here. In terms of green color, I feel like the Reserve Blend is a little bit deeper of a green, even though both of them are pretty green. I feel like you wouldn't be able to tell the difference that much. All right, so just to sum up my final thoughts here, when it comes to culinary matcha, definitely thought the Jade Leaf Matcha won out on that one. And when it came to the ceremonial matchas, I think Matcha Bar's Reserve Blend took the cake. And overall, of course, when it comes to drinking, I think the Reserve Blend was the best. In general, when it comes to drinking matcha, just like straight up tea, ceremonial is usually your way to go. But of course, you know, it is a really expensive price point. If you're kind of just looking to buy matcha in bulk and you want to use it for a variety of reasons like baking and smoothies and other stuff, I would recommend just kind of going for a bulk buy of culinary matcha. But me personally, I really like drinking matcha every day just with tea and with some oat milk. So when it comes down to that, I usually tend to go for the ceremonial. It's a little bit of a splurge, but if you want to kind of treat yourself and buy some nice beverages, I would definitely recommend going for a ceremonial matcha. And in this specific case, the Reserve Blend by Matcha Bar, I definitely think Ippudo has been a really consistent favorite for me too when it comes to ceremonial, but in this specific taste test, that's kind of where I'm leaning. So yeah, in conclusion, I love matcha. It's definitely one of the best things I kind of rediscovered my love for during quarantine. It's definitely a drink that I feel like I could drink every day and feel good. It's a really great source of energy. And I do find it to be a really great ritualistic drink that you can make every day. So yeah, I hope this video has inspired you to check out matcha if you've never had it before, or if you're just looking to learn more about it and to make it yourself at home. It's really easy and really fun to get into. So yeah, I hope this video inspired you to make some cool drinks at home, make some matcha for yourself, treat yourself. I hope you found this video useful in some way, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And now time to drink all of these matchas and be extremely over-caffeinated.